Hi guys, welcome to our March Hug of 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Bree. I am the Community Manager here at Neighbourhood. Today we're going to be talking about sales pipeline optimization, and that will cover everything from making data-driven decisions, communication techniques, follow-up techniques, and all that kind of stuff. So super excited to get into it. But before we start, just remember we do have our chat box, there we go, open on the right-hand side of the screen. So if you have any questions throughout, just make sure you leave a comment there and we will get back to you in the chat box. As always, if you have any questions or have any topics you would like us to cover for our hugs, please email me at bg@mbh.co and I will be able to get back to you there. One more thing, in April we are doing our Commerce Hub for our April Hug, which I'm super excited about because it has just landed in Australia. So there's going to be a bunch to talk about there, so you're completely across it. So now that I have that out of the way, we have Geordie.
There's a lot to get through there.
There is. We have Geordie again with us today. He's our Head of Client Success here at Neighbourhood. So I feel like he knows a thing or two about sales optimization.
I've done a couple of these in my time, so I think we're good.
And how are you feeling today?
Yeah, doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Cool.
Pumped to get into it.
Hell yeah. Thanks for joining me. That's great. So like I said, you've done your fair share of sales projects. I think I've done a fair share of my sales projects as well. There's been a lot of changes in HubSpot and how you can optimize your sales pipeline. I guess, how have you seen it change over time?
I mean, there's so many more features and functions now. With the amount of product updates HubSpot's doing at the moment, all the new betas they've got rolling out, there's so much, and it can be a little bit overwhelming at times with the amount of stuff. But if you focus on the tools that you know are effective for you, it can make your life so much easier, and your sales team's lives so much easier.
Yep, totally agree. Before we get into all those different tools as well, just a note that I think this hub whilst it will be useful for beginners, it probably is more aimed at you guys who are using the professional and enterprise levels of Sales Hub and probably have been for a while. This is for optimizing an already set up Sales Hub. But with that said, if you haven't, you can take these best practices away and set up a really good sales pipeline. So it is for everyone, but at the same time, it is probably leaning towards people who have been using Sales Hub for a little while as well. Okay, so I thought we'd start off with just some general sales process thoughts, the questions we start asking ourselves when we're thinking of optimizing a sales process. So one of my first ones are things like, are there any blockages in the pipeline? So I'm talking about when there's a bunch of deals in your pipeline and you're looking at them just sit at the discovery stage, for example. I feel like that's a pretty common stoplight and be like, ooh, something's going on there in that bit there, which goes on to, are your deals taking forever to close as well? I feel like if you're in the sales world, you should have some idea of how long your deals are taking to close, but it's good to ask yourself that. Just quickly, I'm going to jump into HubSpot. On the deals pipeline, on the board view, there is some numbers up there already. So there's the average deal age of your deals. So that will already start giving you a really quick idea of how long are my deals sitting there and that doesn't match my goals that I have.
It's useful, those little data highlights at the top there.
Absolutely.
If you can't see them, you might need there's an expand button, I think, on the right side.
Okay. Hide insights, yes. That's so fine. Just up here, show insights, and you'll be able to see them there. A couple of other numbers in there, which I think can help you out. A couple of other questions to ask yourself if you're not sure if you need to optimize your sales pipeline. Is your team skipping any steps, or are they not entering data? Usually what this means is that the sales process isn't quite tweaked for, I guess, your business, or for your sales team either. They might be finding it too difficult or too hard to remember all the bits of data, or they might find some stages useless, or maybe they just need to have the process driven home a little bit.
Training is probably the most important part.
Training, exactly, yeah. So I think that's a big one as well. Another really good question to ask yourself is, are you getting the right information at the right time? Sometimes you'll find you'll jump into like deal boards where you're trying to optimize and there's just no data going in. And there's super easy ways that you can really make that more effective, that data collection process. And finally, are you getting low quality leads? And that's to do with how are you collecting your leads as well. So it's a bit in that, I guess, RevOps side between marketing and sales a little bit, but it definitely will help that sales optimization process. So I guess the first thing you want to get into is to visualize in your head where it's going wrong or where the problem areas are, so to speak. Is there any other like things you would look for, Geordie, to spot any problem areas in your sales process?
I think the data thing you mentioned is probably like the number one. So often you go in there and there's no data. There's no, like even as simple as what product the person is inquiring about, like at its simplest, and people just don't fill those out. I think that's the number one thing I always see. I think another place is go directly to the source of the people using it and ask them what their pain points are. If they're having any issues along the pipeline and the process, because depending who built the pipeline, they're thinking from their perspective, but the actual end user and them using it, there's always going to be things that you need to you have to have in place that the end user might not agree with. But I think it's an important place to kind of start and see what the issues could be.
Yeah, for sure. I like to think of it as almost building a product, pretending you're in a product team and you're building UI. You're not going to build the UI for yourself, you're building it for your customer. Which at the end of the day, doing this, you're actually building it for not only your customer's experience, but your sales team experience as well. Bit of both. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you. You're going to talk through that lead generation piece and the correct entry into a sales pipeline. So when that deal card pops up for the first time.
So I think with the way that new leads or new deals get created in the system will be dependent on your business. I think it varies for everyone. Some people, depending on the number of leads, will have every single lead generate a deal, and then they want to be able to track every single interaction and with those deals, and if you move it to loss, then they want to see how many they've lost, how many you win. They want to see everything. Versus for ones that have a lot of leads coming into the system, there are a few tools within HubSpot that are useful, like the new prospecting space can be useful to track that sort of a thing, or there's some sort of qualification process at the start, whatever that might be. I think the number one way, the best way to have a deal get generated is through a workflow, but the trigger for that, I think, is like a form of some sort. So that way you can collect the exact same data every single time. You don't need your sales rep to fill out the product when they want it by, like, all that data can be provided to you by the lead.
Absolutely.
And then everyone gets the same data. It's all consistent. It's uniformed. It makes life so much easier. Not going to work for every single case, I don't think. For having a form. Not every single industry or product that people are selling that kind of relates to. But I think it's kind of the best approach. Is have some sort of a form that, you capture that little bit of extra information. Even with the meeting links tool now, you can ask all the questions you want or redirect people to a form to complete for a little bit of extra information.
Absolutely.
I think we might even have a project form that we have them fill out that actually, they fill out all the information, and then Trav's got it right from the start, everything he needs.
That's great. And it also means all salespeople have exactly the same information every single time. So if there is, I forgot what it's called, but it's the sales team before just doing the lead farming and lead generation.
SDRs normally.
Instead of relying on that person to get the same information every time, this will ensure you are getting the same information. I've also seen people create a form in HubSpot and use it for their internal call center as well. That way, the customer, maybe you do take a lot of your sales via the phone, and that way you're still collecting that information every single time, but it's just with your call center team. I think forms are the way to go for sure when collecting that information.
Just makes everything consistent, and like you actually get the data you need. And if you make required fields, I mean, the same as that when you go into deals and go create deal, optimizing that form that when you go to create deal to actually get you the information you need.
Absolutely. Speaking on that, I have a little, it was in my product update. You can now customize the deal name,
The default,
the default deal name to be what you need it to be. So when you just click create deal, it'll just pop up with whatever you need to. So you can customize that now, which is pretty cool.
It used to be what new deal.
Yeah, just dash new
name.
Deal. Yeah, Trav was saying that it's burnt into his retinas. So I'm glad we can tweak it a little bit for that.
I think one thing that we do often see, and while we always say the form, we always see emails on websites.
Yes.
And so people will go to your website, and then right next to the contact page form will be your sales email. But if you get them to email, then you're missing out on all that valuable data of like all those properties that we've just kind of spoken about of the service that they want or when they actually need it. All that critical data is missed if you let them email you. So get rid of emails off websites.
Yep.
There's no point to them if there's a contact
Say
page
goodbye.
form. Yeah.
Say goodbye.
100%.
Yep, I totally agree.
I think that's all the things I had for how to enter the pipeline there. Over to you for reviewing the pipeline.
Reviewing the pipeline. So I would guess we put that entry bit first because it is that piece between marketing and sales. So now it's actually looking at your pipeline and asking yourself what needs to change and, if anything needs to change. So like I said before, looking at it, is there any bottlenecks? Is there anything obvious that's just kind of sitting there? One question I like to ask myself is each stage actionable? Because if it's not actionable, people are not going to use it. So some good, I guess, language around that is, meeting booked or contract signed or balance paid. Those are all actions that have been taken. There's some that I'm trying to think of some, I guess, negative examples. I've seen like proposal writing in progress. I don't really like in progress stages. It should be the stage before and the stage after, and you can set up things so you can have tasks for each of those stages. Having actionable stages makes everything just super clear and you know exactly where everything is. I think in progress makes it a bit invaluable and kind of mystical. Like, what's going on here?
I think it kind of goes both ways as well. It's like actionable for the salesperson on the sales side, but it's also for the consumer on the other person, the lead, I guess you're speaking to on the other end as well. So if they need to complete something, it's in that stage and being followed up until they complete it. So whether it's contract sent out, contract to be signed, whatever that might be, if it's waiting on them to be signed, then it's sitting in that stage. So you don't have to action anything unless you've got to do follow up. Well, I mean, that's the one thing you do know you need to action. And you're kind of waiting on the lead for that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple more things I want to talk at, I guess, in reviewing your pipeline. And one thing I want to say is go through your sales process yourself. Do a secret shopper thing, or just say, hey, Mary, salesperson Mary, don't know why that name came to me. I'm doing a full sales process. Just treat me like I am a customer. And take notes, put it on a Miro board, map it out, and see how long it takes you to get through the process as if you were a customer. Of course, you're going to speed up some things and be like, I would buy my product, So just keep that in mind. But see what kind of emails you get, what kind of follow-up you get. Test your salespeople a little bit for their sake at the end of the day. This is for optimizing the process, not for testing how people are, also how people are using it, I guess, because then you can gauge the training level that might be needed as well.
I think that like secret shopper thing, going through your process like you are an opportunity and like a consumer is a really useful thing, because you can see how long it's your sales staff are taking to connect with them. You might have an SLA that all new leads need to be contacted within 3 hours, but if it's 3 days later you still haven't got a call, there are some issues that you need to actually address, and you can do that as part of the pipeline. Like sort those sort of things out.
Absolutely. Another thing I would recommend setting up, I have just done a HubSpot how to on this, is creating calculated properties for each stage, for each deal. This is a super simple one. There is a more complex one where you can do calculated times between all the stages, but in order to do that, you have to set up a couple of date properties. So the quick way you can get quick data is just the time between close date and end date, and quickly see what the average is, or even have a look at the ones that have gone really fast or really slow and figure out why that is and take learnings from those kinds of things. Because the mean or the average is fine, but we're looking for those long ones or we're looking for the outliers, so to speak, that may be affecting how the process is running. Everyone wants to look at their good data. Go look at your bad data. Look at what you're doing wrong. Reflect.
There's so much you can do with those calculated properties. Like we're talking about just even the time between discovery stage and deal closed won.
Yeah.
You can calculate that, but I mean, I've got ones in some client portals where it calculates the GST if they want to know that separate, but then there's also based on the commission rate for their BDMs, it's a certain formula we've created for all of them, so they can get that commission rate and visible on the deal as well.
Awesome. Yeah, they're super helpful. I'll place a link in the chat box, hopefully on the right-hand side. I always forget. But yeah, I'll put a link there so you guys can watch that and know exactly how to do that. Awesome. So that's reviewing it. I don't think I have anything more on that. The main thing is just, looking at where things are going wrong. Map it out, document it, piece of paper, mirror board, just make sure you have it all out there, and then go take that around everywhere to customer success, sales, talk to whoever you need to and be like, what do you think of this? Is there anything you want to add to this that we're missing here? Any context? Beautiful.
I think there's even a piece there of like sales, customer success, but also speak to like marketing as well as part of it. I think one thing we might have not really discussed there is that marketing and sales alignment part of it, which is really important. Like if, the sales are saying you're getting really bad leads, but you've actually sat down and agreed upon what actually makes a good lead, then the leads shouldn't be bad if they're coming into the pipeline.
Agreed.
If you set that criteria, which could be, they could have a budget, could be a question, it could be, when they actually need it, all these different criteria. But I think that's really important to sit down and actually sales and marketing to come together and discuss that.
Absolutely. Have that workshop. It's worth it. Even if it's just an hour, you will learn so much about your different teams and be like, I didn't know you guys did that. Bam, synergy. Okay. I'm going to hand over to you to talk about automating things, when to automate and when not to automate as well.
I think this is a massive thing, because I think I always talk about it like when I very first started doing sales processes, and started in this job like 5 years ago. We was like, let's automate everything. Like if it's a follow up, it's like every single stage has some sort of a customer communication that's automated, like internal notifications, like everything automated. And it's a lot and it's full on, and it can be very full on. It's also not very human as well. And it's, these days I can look at any email and go, that's automated.
Oh, it's easy. And you need to remember your customers or your prospects are not stupid. People aren't stupid with technology anymore. It doesn't happen. So maybe don't try to trick them.
Maybe like 10, 15 years ago, you'd be like, wow, what is this? Like, this guy's following me up. Like, it's always a dead giveaway, and you see the unsubscribe button down the bottom of the email. That's a marketing email.
Yes.
But I think as I've kind of learnt more and more and worked across an entire range of industries and everything, I'm seeing more and more people just go, we want it one-to-one. Like our process is all one-to-one. There'll be some, like when we talk about e-commerce, that's not so one-to-one a lot of the time. That is bulk emails. Automate as much of that as you can.
And customers don't expect you to be one-to-one for e-commerce. I don't think ever. I have never expected it. So
exactly. Versus, so many businesses that we're currently working with right now, their process is very human. It's all about the relationship that they've got with the sales rep. So it's important to stay human and not kind of try to automate everything.
Amen.
I think as part of that, if you're looking at some of the things you want to automate, is it going to hinder the process? Is it going to create bottlenecks? Is it going to look fake and, again, looking robotic and not real? But at the same time, there is a lot of things that you can automate that, if you're not hiding behind, we're a real person here, then people kind of believe it. And
for sure. I think too much automation can also confuse the sales team a lot. I've had a lot of teams come to us and say, we love HubSpot, but we have no idea what's going on in there. There's emails getting sent left, right, and center. We don't know what it is, and that often happens when there's some changeover of staff or something like that. But if it's simplified, then it's a lot easier to pass on that process because it's more human and common sense in that process. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's probably part of it as well. Is when people do leave, that knowledge kind of gets taken with them.
Definitely.
And if you're not mapping it out, like you mentioned earlier about map out the process, we use Miro for everything to wireframe and map things out. If that's not a thing you've got, if you leave, you take that with you, and then everyone's confused, and the whole sales process it needs a whole revamp.
Absolutely.
Every single time.
Yep.
Best way, I think, to look at everything, like you're humanizing everything in your process, is to actually do follow-ups, do manual follow-ups if you need to. There's also, there's a couple of things here. There's templated emails, which we'll discuss and show you in a second. Automating tasks for people to follow up things. So, if it is using that example before of that contract sent out stage, if it's in there for like a week, it could set an internal reminder to the sales rep to give the opportunity a call to follow up on something. You can also automate those sort of things up. Some of the things we automate for different customers is like payment reminders. We've got set up for some clients where based on the date that they want this product delivered, it'll send them follow-up emails 30 days out to follow up on those payments. I think that's a really useful one because for something like a payment reminder, you don't need a human touch on that. It can look automated. It's not a relationship building thing following up payment.
It's just money.
Exactly.
It's business, baby.
Exactly. So those sort of things I think can be, and a lot of softwares or payment softwares will have that sort of a thing inbuilt, but you can build them in HubSpot as well. I think it gives you a bit more control.
The Commerce Hub's going to be great for that. Make sure you go get your ticket. Not now, wait after this. Just doing a quick plug there for Commerce Hub.
Some of the things that I think when not to automate, I think when it does come back down to that relationship. Like when you, in the early stages of a sales process, you're wanting to build that relationship with the prospect. So don't automate that. That should be follow-up calls. It should be one-to-one emails. But in saying that, there's a couple of things you can do to automate that at the same time. I'm going to jump ahead into a couple of little things I was going to talk about, but I'm going to start probably with sequences.
I think that's a good idea.
Sequences, and if you jump into HubSpot, it's in automations and sequences. You do need sales professional or enterprise for this. Essentially what a sequence is that it does automated follow-up for you, and it looks like it's a one-to-one email. If I click on steps.
It's not counted as a marketing email, so you won't have to unsubscribe or anything like that.
So it looks like a real thing.
Like a person.
I think these are heavily underused. Often we'll talk about it with our clients, and then it kind of gets put on the back burner, and we kind of come back around to it a little while later. But it's such an easy thing to do, automated follow-up, that you don't need to do anything, basically. Basically what a sequence will do is send a chain of emails or tasks, and it will stop if the person replies to that email or if they book a meeting. So you always kind of have a meeting link in there as well. So these are super, super useful. This example we've got here, it sends an automated email on day one, and this is, you'll be able to enroll people in your email or on their contact as well. So you'll be able to do it, sends an email automated, then 2 business days later, there's a task for you to send a follow-up email. That's to check it, depending on what the situation is. You might just need to check if something's happened versus sending another automated email. By doing it manual, it just gives the sales rep a bit more control, which some people like that control where they could have, the opportunity could have called.
If they knew that was the right thing. I think people, when they're automating things, they're like, let's just automate it all so salespeople don't have to think about it. But salespeople are legends at connecting and being human with people and be able to know when to pick up the phone and when to email. So if you don't give them that choice, you're probably going to lose customers or prospects to that side of things.
And with these, you can set these up to be that like heavy on the phone call tasks for them to follow up, or it could be heavy on email.
Yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
need to call them at this point. As you can see here as well, like another 2 days later, call task, call contact and leave voicemail if they don't answer. Then immediately, another follow-up email. This is just an example. There's a bunch of templates that HubSpot already has.
They're
which are
pretty
really
good.
handy.
I actually was looking through them before. They're not too bad.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good.
Yep.
I think Sequences is a heavily underused area of HubSpot.
Yep.
I think, as you said, then we can either fully automate it and have 10 emails that are follow up until the person replies to you.
Yep.
Or it could be just one email, 2 tasks to follow up, or give them a call a few days later. Keep it as simple or as complex as you want with these, but it looks after so much.
It does. It really does.
One thing I've actually done for a couple of clients is that if they're using the quote tool inside HubSpot, is the email that they send with the link of that quote is actually a sequence. So then the other example I want to show of automating, and this is a super simple one, and hopefully a lot of people have actually got this kind of set up already, is to create a workflow that will generate a task at a certain stage. So for example, this one here has been set up that if the deal stage is presentation scheduled, then there is a task created for the deal owner.
Beautiful.
This helps you keep everyone accountable. I mean, as a sales manager, should, if they have a weekly meeting with their team, be able to go through everyone's tasks and see who's been ticking things off and make sure they're actually doing it.
Yep.
I think that's a really important thing. I think on the flip side of that, you can definitely assign too many tasks to people. Like if you have one at every single stage,
task
it can be a lot full
overwhelm.
on. Just depends what the situation is and when you kind of need those.
Yep.
I think it's a really useful thing.
And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but once you've done this optimization process, you don't leave it. If your sales team is telling you there are too many tasks, I can't deal with it, you come back to that section of the process and be like, how can we fix this for them? How can we make it easier or get the best of both worlds, or whatever that looks like as well?
100%.
Coolies. My turn?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So in this one, I kind of mentioned it a little bit above, but using pipeline conditions, which are kind of new, and required properties as well. So these two kind of areas I think can really start to bring a process to life quite easily and suddenly make the whole pipeline very, very effective very, very quickly. I'm going to do some quick demos on both of these. I will note for the pipeline conditions one, it is in its infancy stages. It kind of just came out, so there's not a whole lot you can do with it, but enough to somehow put kind of some, I like to say it's like a sandbox, and put kind of the planks around the sandbox a little bit, bit of structure. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So let's get into HubSpot. And
Where'd that name come from?
every time there's always something. You're banned from the hugs now. No, I'm kidding. Come back.
I just sat there and processed that for a little bit. And I was like,
Yeah.
Did you actually just say that?
I think I say it to myself. But we were vocal about it today. We're yapping today, so it's coming. Okay, so you're going into deals in HubSpot, and then you're going to go to your pipeline settings. So I'm going to use our test one here. And if you look across here, we've got pipeline rules, and you've just got a bunch of like on and off toggles or switches. So a couple of rules. We've got limit deal creation to a single stage, which means people basically can't create a new deal in any stage outside of the one you select.
I think that's a good one.
I think that's a good one.
New opportunity, right at the very start there.
I'll show you what it looks like when you turn it on. It'll just ask you to select a stage, and then that's it. It's set up.
Easy.
Next one is restrict deals from skipping stages. I actually really like this one, especially after you've created the process. Maybe not midway through creating your new process, but afterwards, especially if you don't want people moving backwards, because there are, some sales theories and methodologies that say you shouldn't be moving backwards. With that said, there are some where you maybe do need to be a bit more flexible in maybe some of the service side of things sometimes, or if you need to rewrite a proposal.
It really depends on your process and the way you do things, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think an example of when can go backwards is if, you know, a quote expires, then moving back into quote required,
Yeah,
let's call it.
definitely.
Because it has to go back and, well, it doesn't have to go back,
Yeah, but
they might need a new quote.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good example. The next one I've got is, sorry, I've skipped them up. I've mixed them up a little bit. So we just talked about restricting deals from moving backwards. There's also restrict deals from skipping stages as well. This one's going to be really helpful hand in hand with required properties. And I'll show you why in a second, but basically required properties allow you to collect information at each stage. So even if your sales team is like, you know what, they're past that stage, forcing them to put it to the next stage will make sure they're collecting that data at every single point of the sales process. Even if they put it in there, collect the data, move it on to the next one, you're still making sure you're doing every single step.
I think that's really good of like collecting it at every stage, because like if you do it at each stage when they're going to know information, rather than, I've seen sometimes when it's like it moves into close one and every single property is just there, and it's like, let them just do, if they have to do 1 or 2 little properties at every single stage, it's just, it takes them a second versus doing all of them all at once. It's a lot.
Totally agree. Finally, you can control deal editing access. Yeah, if you don't want your marketing team maybe to jump in there. I don't know, but basically you can turn that on and just select which stages someone can't touch it. That could also work for sales managers if they're in charge of a certain stage and no longer want the sales team to touch it maybe.
I mean, even like the closed one, once it's moved into closed one,
don't touch it.
Be edited again.
Or even close loss as well. That's a good point. Cool. So as you can see on the little stages area here, it currently says all stages. I am hoping they do come out with the ability to select the stages you would like to restrict deals from skipping or moving backwards. Maybe not the moving backwards one, you probably want to do that as a whole. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more customization in this area, I think. Which brings me to required properties. Or conditional stage properties, they're actually called. We call them required properties. I don't think there's ever been a sales process we've created here at Neighbourhood that does not include conditional properties. No way.
Like the most important part.
Always, yeah. So I'm going to show you the most simple one, like the simplest thing you can do to make this all a lot easier for yourself. Put in your closed one and closed lost, place a required property to set the closed one reason or the closed lost reason. So every single time a deal is closed won or closed lost, there's going to be a reason in there, so you can analyze those reasons and figure out where you can, I guess, improve. Really. So when you are setting this up, you probably just watch me then. There is a little tick button that says required. So if you want them to 100% fill that out every single time, you will need to tick that required one. Otherwise, you can leave it unticked if it's not always going to be there. The information's not always going to be there. So I'm going to quickly show you what this looks like in action. We're in the sales one. Okay. Super good naming of our test pipelines for sure.
Test pipelines in there.
Okay, so let's move neighbourhood plumbing to, no, we did plumbing now, to closed one. Wasn't even funny. You can see it's popped up with a dependent property there. So now it's forcing me, if I want to move this to close one, it is forcing me to put a reason in there. In our previous one, Dom and I talked about making them drop downs to collect more specific reasons. But if you're just starting out, I would start with maybe an open text field to start collecting the main reasons as to why deals are losing or winning. Cool, so that was required properties and pipeline conditions there. Once again, I'm pretty sure 99% there is a HubSpot how-to that I can send you guys with a little bit more information on how to set those up if you would like to see that. But I'm going to hand it back to you to talk about playbooks and call transcripts as well.
I will jump to those in a sec. I did just think also, and this is not in the actual plan, but the conditional property logic.
Yes, yes.
Is another thing for those properties. So like,
absolutely.
I think the example you've shown there is part of the deal pipeline and we can move it there. But you can also have it where if, say on a deal card down the left-hand side, if you update one of those properties to something, it can then ask a follow-up question right there. And so it's a required field for that to be saved. That's really
Super useful.
Really useful.
Yep.
And that's only relatively new. I think the last
quite
6
newish,
months,
yeah.
maybe. But that is new, so you create logic on it. So basically, anywhere that property has changed, then the second follow-up question, is
Yeah,
asked.
that's
So,
awesome. Yep.
Trying to think of a good example of it.
Country and then state.
Yeah.
Very simple. Oh, you're from New Zealand? Where in New Zealand are you from?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yep.
So yeah, that appears anywhere that the deal, whenever you update that property, it asks it. So
Yeah,
it's
awesome. I didn't know it was anywhere, so that's really
Yeah.
cool, actually. Very
Really
cool.
useful.
Yep.
Now on to Playbooks. We'll talk about call transcripts as well.
Just a little bit. At least I'd like to show where it lives, I think, because I think it's getting better. They're call transcripts at the moment.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
These are really good tools for training. I think
Yeah.
for sales training, for a sales manager, for the team to know all the right things to say, all the questions to ask. One thing with Playbooks is that on Enterprise, you can update properties inside a playbook. So you can pull those properties from the deal card and have them filled out. And it populates them. Professional, it's only a text field.
Yeah,
basically, at this
right.
point. So Playbooks, if I go to one that I've actually got the menu on, Playbooks, they live in.
You've got the new menu. I cannot help you. I am so sorry.
Under library,
Yep.
and then Playbooks.
Good to know.
I mean, these are super useful if you've got a new sales team.
Yep.
You can pretty much just
Yep.
day one they can be selling.
Even your customer success team as well, they're really good for. If you've got an onboarding process or onboarding training, you could definitely use this to start, or strategy sessions even. It's another really good one.
Yeah, really useful. So that's where you can go to access them, and that's to create them. And I will show you that first. This right here is an example of a Connect call playbook, and it just kind of gives a bit of a script or the types of questions that the sales team should be asking during that Connect call. So you can see here we've got a bit of text here, current challenges or issues. Basically, just have this up in a window and just be typing and adding notes in while on the call.
Yeah, cool.
Super useful, very handy. If I go into the actual deal pipeline, let's go into Angela's shoes.
Angela's shoes.
We also sell shoes here.
It's
as well as
actually
the plumbing.
my secret business. I didn't tell you about it. I'm so sorry.
You can actually access Playbooks down the side here. And so this is where your sales team would then be able to access them. And if I click on that.
And I think it also it recommends it depending on where you are in the deal pipeline, I'm pretty sure. So if you're in a discovery call, if they're noticing people are clicking the discovery playbook, it will say, hey, this is the one you need to use at this point in time, which
really
I think is
useful.
really cool.
Yeah, that's really useful. So you can see there, you can just fill out all the information. Because these are required fields, it's asking me to fill them out, but then you can just go log call, and it will log that playbook and that call.
Very cool, very underutilized.
I was hoping to actually just be able to submit this.
Are you excited for your new shoes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
500 school shoes I'm apparently buying here. So if I go to activities, you can see here, logged call.
Yeah.
There's all the notes that I took during that.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's Playbooks. Then the other side of things is another really useful tool is the call logging. So everyone who has a sales seat will get a set number of minutes per month for making calls in the system. It's actually super easy. Like when you go onto a contact record or even the deal records there, you can just click call in the top left. It'll call the primary contact on a deal, or it'll call the contact if you're on there as well. You can get it to, so depending how you want to use it, you can do it on your own device, and a HubSpot number will call you. It'll be a US number, will call you, and then it calls the person. Or you can call through your browser, so you just chuck your headphones on, and it records it.
Yeah, awesome.
It will then actually transcribe that. I don't think we're going to have any in here because
we're
our
not.
phone numbers aren't connected. But you can see here that phone call that I just happen to have there with that playbook is actually assigned in here, and it's created.
Yeah, awesome. And it's starting to pick up things like the speakers who are speaking, and these transcripts will be really good if you want to sit down with a sales rep and be like, let's listen to this one. How do you think you went? Here's a couple of pointers for this area of the call. So it's really good for, you can add them to things like coaching playlists, which is something that is also...
Get that. Could you try again?
My goodness. So sorry. Sorry, Siri. Which is super useful for that training side of things. If you want to be like, hey, go look at this playlist. This is what you need to improve on, blah, blah, blah.
And here are our best calls.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, here are some calls that didn't go so well.
Avoid this.
Listen and have a look at what you think you can do differently. Or, it's super useful. Like as you can see here, there's like you can pull these stats of call owner talk time, talk speed, the longest monologue, longest customer story, interactivity, and patience. Patience is time between.
I would win longest monologue for sure.
I think when we do the trainings, it's like 5 minutes worth of talking.
Bree talked for 5 minutes.
But these are super useful. And as I said, it's getting better and better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think when it first came out, we were like, oh, some of the transcriptions were a little bit dodgy. But I think that's with all AI kind of things now. They started out a little bit iffy. And they've improved a lot.
Oh, definitely. Yep. One more thing I'm going to touch on with your little playbooks is CRM cards. I don't know when they came out, but they were really sneaky.
I think it was December.
They just popped out of nowhere. So I've set up this little example one, a connect call one, and usually back in the day you'd just be able to see your activities and maybe a few set cards that they tell you to do. You can now set up, I think it's for Pro, for any Pro subscription. I think some are for starter and free as well, but you can basically customize your tabs up the top and add cards in.
It's the enterprise, you can create the
tabs.
More tabs.
Yep.
The overview one you can update on.
Anything. Yep. So for this overview, just to repeat that, you can update and add whatever cards you want. However, if you want your own custom tabs, it's on enterprise. So I created this little connect call one because I wanted to show off the property listing one. So if you don't have enterprise, but you want to be entering in properties and saving those properties on a call, you could add, they're called property lists, and you can select the properties you want to show. And you could have your playbook above as a script and this on the bottom and just fill out the properties as you go. I think it's a really good kind of workaround for those who maybe aren't up to that enterprise level just yet, so that you could still get the same kind of experience and get that data straight into the data properties. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It is so cool.
A little sneaky workaround there. That nobody tell HubSpot about that.
Yeah, no one tell HubSpot on the HubSpot user group. Super cool, honestly. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what else they do with those cards. I'm sure we'll get into them a bit more, probably more on our HubSpot hacks, which is a part of our monthly email. Just another quick plug there. Definitely keep an eye on those because they're more of the advanced hacks. We'll definitely include some of those CRM cards.
Yeah, awesome.
Beautiful. I'm going to take the one that you and I seem to talk about every single time we do a hug together.
I think this is probably the most covered thing out of all of our hugs we've ever done.
Yeah, if you have come to our hug before, you'll probably be like, I've done that already. I've done it, I promise. Good.
And if you haven't,
go do it now.
What are you doing?
Come on. But it's the back burner stage. And so basically how the back burner works, it's a stage usually we recommend right at the end of your pipeline where someone might call you and be like, look, I'm super interested, but I'm not going to have the money to do this for another 3 months. Can you get back to me? When you have that type of phone call, is very much like, oh, well, where do I put this person? They're not lost. They're just kind of sitting there. That's when you go put them in the back burner. There's a lot of things you can do from that back burner stage as well. You can set a follow-up date for yourself, but you could also send up a follow-up email maybe a month before or 15 days before, being like, hey, I know we want to catch up soon. Let's book in a meeting now. Great example of how you could use that. All you have to do to set this up is go into settings. If you've used HubSpot sales before, you should have some idea of how to do this. But basically, we're going to pipeline. We're adding a stage. We're going to call it back burner. I think we usually put it at 10% probability, I think, but keep an eye on it.
Time is a bit of a killer for deals. So
yeah. What does Trav say? Time kills all deals.
Time kills all deals.
Yeah.
That's sales 101.
Yeah, got it.
There you go, sales
Nailing
101.
it. You heard it here first. Yeah. So back into the back burner, I've just created that. From here, we saw the required properties before. That's where you could add a follow-up date that you could select if you move it to back burner. You could put back burner reason as well, which is helpful to remind yourself a little bit. But definitely, I think a winner in terms of the sales pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super useful one. I think you think about sales people, like they've got so many deals on the go at the same time.
Yeah.
Somebody says, let's talk in a month's time. They go, yeah, sweet, no worries. And then just forget about it.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Don't call them, don't follow up on them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
To get that reminder on the day that you said you were going to call and calling them, I think the best hack that we've got regarding a sales process.
For sure. Also, if I was a customer and I got a call on that day, I'd be like, I'm not interested anymore, but I love you guys. Like, I love the follow-up here. I mean, you never know. Even if time does kill that deal, you might, maybe a year later, they might be like, you know what? Those people were great. They actually followed me up when they said they would. I trust them. Blah, blah, blah.
It can even happens at any stage of the process though. Like it could be in the full contract negotiation stage. They go, we're not ready to do this until new financial year.
Yeah.
Let's talk then.
Yeah.
Then
How good is that?
you follow up 30 days out from that.
Yep.
Get the contract signed and
Yeah.
you're sorted.
So good, so good. So we have 15 minutes left. So we do have a bit of time to talk about a couple of extra tidbits and bits and bobs that we put into a quick list because we're like, there's so much stuff to talk about to help you optimize your sales process. So the first one I'll talk about is AI forecasting. This is still in a public beta. So I'm going to quickly show you guys how to get to your betas because if you follow our HubSpot hacks or any of our HubSpot update emails or videos with Travi, we often talk about the public betas and where you can see all the product updates. So that's what I'm going to do now. So if you go up to the name of your HubSpot portal with a little arrow, you go down to product updates. They've actually redesigned this product updates screen and I love it. So you can see live, coming soon, in beta, in development, and even sunset features as well, which is important to know about if you are using certain features. You can also sort them by all the different apps as well. So if you don't have all the apps and products, you might not really be interested. So if we, for example...
There's so many updates.
Oh, there's so many.
It's a little bit overwhelming how many there are.
Yep.
But do check back often because there's always new updates.
Yep.
And some of them are really, really useful and handy.
Really cool. And Trev and I will always handpick the best ones in our HubSpot update videos. So that's where you'll probably get those, top level ones that you really should be excited about for sure. So AI forecasting, obviously last year at Inbound, they were like, we're doing AI. There's a bunch of stuff coming out. This is something I looked at in January. I was like, when is this coming out? This sounds really cool. But basically it uses your month's sales numbers to project future sales or how they think you will do in the future. Turn this on because it's going to take 2 months to start collecting data. So that's why I wanted to bring it up now, because you need to just start collecting data. So to get there, you're going to go to sales and then forecast. And then there's a new analyze little banner here, and you click turn on AI forecasting and it's going to start collecting. So you're not going to see numbers straight away. Even our portal is still collecting at the moment. So turn it on now. Just after this, go on, turn it on, leave it. It's there. You might as well turn it on. Why not?
Yeah.
See what it does.
Oh, exactly.
And I think it'll get better over time. So you might as well start it now.
That's exactly it. I think anything with the AI stuff at the moment, it might start out not so great.
Bit wonky.
Yeah, wonky is probably a good way to put it. But over time, they're going to get better and better.
Yep.
As you kind of said, the HubSpot's kind of gone all in on the AI side of things.
For sure.
There's a lot coming out, and it's all kind of improving. Like you notice the difference of when they first brought out some things.
Yeah.
Some things were a little bit wonky.
Yep.
But now some of those tools are really useful.
Yeah. And I think Trav and I talked about AI in December last year. And even since then, there's been, you can just see it getting better. It's collecting a lot more information, I think, and improving itself as it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, really useful. The one I'm going to talk about next is the payment links and collecting from Stripe.
Yep.
I'm not going to go fully deep into this because Commerce Hub, the April hug, another plug here, get your tickets. It's all about Commerce Hub, which is you can do quotes, invoices, payment links, and that can also help with subscriptions as well. all in HubSpot, and it's done via Stripe. So some of you might actually use Stripe already for payments.
Yep.
But it used to be a thing that was around the world. Like I think the US was the first one to.
Yes, correct. Yeah, they got it last year or even before that, I think.
It's been around a while.
It's been around a while. I think Australia's been kind of like bouncing their knee a little bit, waiting for it. So super excited to talk about it next month. We'll have all the deets, all the gossip. I don't say that. Why did my lord? Okay.
That's your normal language.
Yeah, so, the gossip.
But you'll be able to see like commerce, depending if you've got the updated navigation or not. I'm still trying to navigate it myself. But across the top, it might say something else.
It says commerce.
Does it say commerce?
Yep.
But just go have a look at that. Have a bit of a play around. But as we said, the next hug is all on that.
Yep.
So you're going to cover all of that, how to set it up, how to sort it all out. So I think that'll be really good.
Literally start to end. We'll go through it. Another thing that just came out is reporting on Playbooks as well, so usage. So if you're thinking about implementing Playbooks into your sales strategy, that reporting will be super useful just to make sure everyone is using them. Maybe think even how long they're spending on them. It says there's a couple of really cool things that it's doing. So if you go into, one second, it is in sales and then in Playbooks. And then once again, there is an analyze tab there again. So yeah, usage, views, logs, team adoption. It shows the utilization rate, which is, if you're doing a sales optimization process at the moment, that utilization number is really, really cool because finally there's a bit of a number to put. Yeah, that's sick. Love that. Love that so much.
The next one is goals, which primarily the goals kind of lives in the forecasting tool.
Yep.
And that's the best way to view and look at it. I mean, actually, forecasting tools are the one that I rarely go into a portal and it's already set up.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's something we'll do as part of a process.
Yeah, it's usually just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, if people really kind of want it. But it's typically used in forecasting, but it's also, you can just go to goals to actually view them as well. So it lives in reporting and data in this new view. Otherwise, I think it's in...
Yep, I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
Reports and then goals.
Yeah, reporting goals.
Yeah, nailed it.
I can't remember if it's in forecasting. Yep.
But that's where you can view. Forecasting is typically where it's normally used, but you can also just view it here. So I might set up a quick one here just to show what it can actually look like in here. Let's just use a template. I mean, let's do revenue. And let's assign it to Trav here.
Yeah. It's on Trav's hands now.
Yeah, let's hand it over to him. Choose the pipeline. I mean, let's just choose all pipelines. And if you can set it individually per month.
Yeah, cool.
So the targets that they need to hit every single month, which, I mean, for a salesperson to know their targets, I think is critical.
Yeah.
But if I do add a number here, let's just go 100,000, and then that will automatically do it for every single month.
Awesome.
So then if I go next, you can get notifications about that kicking off, when they've exceeded it, achieved it, or when they've missed it.
Yep.
Let's just tick that off and go to goals. Hopefully that actually, there we go. And then you can see how that person is going against each month as well. So the percentage and the amount as well. So that's super useful for sales managers to take their reps through as well.
Yeah, definitely. Just sitting down at the end of the week, be like, everyone do their forecasting.
Yeah.
Go, or end of month or whatever it is. Cool. Last one is Gage reporting. I nearly said gouge. I'm glad I didn't, but I've said it now.
Followed up with that actually.
Okay, so this is just a new type of report display that they've added. I've actually used it for a couple of customers already. It's really stinking cool. But basically you can set like a little goal, so it'll show you that, and it'll show you the gauge all the way up to the goal and where you're about to hit it. So good for revenue maybe for the month, things like that. In chart settings, you can also do colors as well. So you can have a green band for saying, it's doing well from X amount to X amount, but for the red, it might be you've gone too far or something. So a really good example of what I used this for was NPS reporting for customer service. So the green was between like 1 and between, I think it's like 0 and something, but if it was in the negatives, then it was red, basically. So it was a really cool way to visualize, especially if there's industry benchmarks that you're not always going to remember. It was a really cool way to visualize that. I really like that.
I think in my head, I always associate it with using that for like sales reps and hitting their goal. But I think NPS is a really good one as well. So you can see like, depending on what feedback survey.
Yep.
I mean, you want to be in the green for those.
Exactly.
And you build those charts, and they're really handy.
Yeah, for sure. If there's some sort of survey you do after a sales process, since we are talking about sales, you could probably use it for that. Lots of different use cases for those. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Just I guess a quick recap on what we talked about today. Everything today were points discussing on tools to help enable you to optimize your sales process. So whether that you're starting from scratch or whether you're already halfway through the process, hopefully you can take at least one of these things away today to implement and really use, I guess, HubSpot Sales Hub to the best you can, basically. So thanks for joining us. Geordie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks,
I really appreciate it. As always, guys, if you have any questions, chuck them in the chat box. Otherwise, you can email me at bg@mbh.co. Nailed it. So one more time for our April Hug, we are talking about the Australian launch for Commerce Hub. Super exciting. Definitely grab your tickets for that one. That's going to be just packed full of information and how to get started using Commerce Hub. So really exciting one. But yeah.
A lot to cover there.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. I'm excited. And we've got Travi joining us on that one as well. So it will be the last Thursday of April. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and happy HubSpotting. We'll see you next time.